Hello, my name is Vaskin Kasayan, and I'm here to introduce you to the Codebase Context Specification. This is a new project. It's only 2 weeks old. I'm here to address some recent requests for how to get started, what it's about. So I'm going to break it down for you. I've been using several tools. Claude-dev is my current favorite. Aider, Cursor, Continue, GitHub Copilot. I use a lot of these tools. There's several of them that are newly beginning to be able to edit multiple files at a time. Claude-dev with Sonnet currently is very good at this. One of the common patterns that the users for these tools are using is when you start a new context window or a new chat window as you're getting work done in this assisted AI development process, you end up having to retrain the model on the basic context of what the code base is about. And they're only given some general information like a tree of files, and often the models just are guessing at what manifest file to pull open to better understand the code base and help you with the asks of feature requests. But there's nothing in there that actually gives the AI context explicitly until Codebase Context Specification. We define 3 different files that can help AI assisted tools to better direct the agent by giving it full context at the very beginning of the context window, and also letting the team and the users control what goes into the context. For example, a context ignore may work and have an overlap with .getignore, but the concern for .getignore is what files to exclude when tooling is putting things into the repository. Context ignore is similarly a set of rules to tell the AI coding assistants what files that it can put into the context window, which may or may not include things that are get ignored, and vice versa. It's a set of conventions, 3 different conventions, not just context ignore, but primarily this .context MD. The spec will also support JSON and YAML. However, the .md format will be preferred. There's other reasons for this, which I'll cover when I get to the diagrams. This is a form editor that you can use to generate all the elements that are defined in the specification. And as you fill them out, you'll be able to generate the MD file. This is a blank one. So this is front matter, which is part of the markdown specification. Front matter being just an embedded YAML instance. So everything from these 3 lines all the way down to these 3 lines is the equivalent of the YAML definition. In addition to that, below the 3 lines is the actual markdown that is rendered by a markdown renderer. Markdown renderers do not render front matter. The front matter is metadata. So that gives room for us to have structured data and unstructured data for our AI agents. In the specification, there are further tooling enablements such as these related modules. So you can reference multiple modules within one. I'm going to show you how that works. So at the project root, there would be a .context MD file, and optionally .context ignore, optionally .context docs.md, which we'll cover in the next segment. But additionally, you can have a submodule that has a .context.md within it as well. So the specification calls for these subcontext or submodule context to be additive. So the context for the entire project can start at the top level, but it can reference other subcontext for, say, submodules of the system. This is specifically designed for larger, more complex systems. In related modules, you would have a name and path. And so .examples.context editor would be relative to the root or that particular .context MD, referencing another .context.md that has further information about that submodule. Perhaps it's compiled differently or tested differently, or has a different architecture or different concern or different prompting that needs to happen for that submodule. And perhaps the tooling will only need to pull that when it is working on that submodule. But knowing that those are there starts at the top level, so the tools and the functions and the context window can be given the context, can be told that when you need to do this type of work, here's where it is. And at least it can use tooling to go and pull more documents or pull another part of the tree or another part of the code base or another element. That's the idea behind being able to have related modules. You would fill it out here, and this would be either a relative path. Eventually, we also want to support remote related modules. So it won't go too much further in the related modules, but it's a cornerstone of how this will be linked and sublinked within other code bases. The other similar segment is the diagrams, where there's also a name and a path, and these are checked. This is where you would have a diagram that describes the architecture of a piece or module in the system. And you can put any type of diagram there. It can be an image, since we have multimodal models that can understand graphics. However, the specification is going to call for mermaid documentation, because it is much more natural. It can be rendered, but also in raw form. It is text and very easy for a language model to digest. Based on that, mermaid is going to be the default or preferred diagramming style, because we'll be able to link in context within a visual construct from one element within that to other elements, perhaps other subdiagrams, similar to how these subgraphs work here in Mermaid. We would have similar sub-elements, but through the context system, and perhaps as an extension of Mermaid. I have to look into the spec a little bit further to see how they recommend this being done. But this is the direction that the diagram section of Codebase Context is moving. Here's how you get started. Open up VS Code. Go ahead and clone a templates repo. Next steps are to install Claude-dev. So go here, search for Claude-dev. Looks like this. Install. And once you've installed, and close this, go back to your file browser, and Control-Shift-P should let you go to view Claude or Claude-dev, and just type in Claude here, and it'll come up. I've moved mine to the right-hand side here. When you first open it up, it'll ask you for an Anthropic API key. Go ahead and paste that in. Once you paste it in, you should be able to open up this gear. Opening up the gear should let you verify that you have the model selected as Claude 3.5 Sonnet. The latest version of 3.5 is a must-have. Using any of the other options is not going to give you the results that you're looking for. Then the next step is to use the files that are in the repository from the Codebase Context Specification. I've got them opened up, and you can see them in various places, but there's the actual specification, which we're just going to copy right into the root of the VoicePot directory so that Claude-dev can reference it. Next, we're going to go ahead, grab the generating context files prompt. This one right here, repository, generate context prompt. We're going to grab that. Get right into this one.
So now we'll look through this code base.
Okay. Yes. And now it's going to create a .context docs file. Okay. Let's save that. Now it's going to try to run the npx command. Check it. Go ahead and see this. Sure. And there you have it. There's the context file, and looks pretty good. Validated that it was fine. So at this point, you've got a starting point for the .context and .context. You can get rid of this file here.
You don't need it anymore?
These files belong in the repository. So we're going to go ahead and add them in. The next step is to utilize them in the conversation with your AI agent. In this case, again, Claude-dev. So let's clear things up and go to the custom instructions. Under custom instructions, and your AI development tool may come with its own custom instructions area, or it may have its own prompt system. So when it does, just make sure and seed it with instructions so that it uses the context files. I'm in some discussions with tool vendors and the Claude-dev team to see how we can incorporate this. Before all that is implemented, the easiest way to integrate things is to use the custom instructions. So that's what I'm going to show you here. So again, go to the repository, and this is the coding assistant prompt that we will use. So this is giving your coding agent assistant instructions for how to look for these files and how to utilize them. So you can just add that to a prompt or add it to the custom instruction. Then you can even try to tell it to not skip this step, but sometimes it just still tries to open up a package .json file or another file before it opens up the context file. So go ahead and paste that into your custom instructions here, hit done. And now when you start a new task and you're ready to, say, implement something new with the application. So here there's let's say the inbound.py, we want to refactor it. Let's say, review the context of its project, factor the inbound py. Now we could have just said, without any context, go and refactor inbound.py, but there may be a lot of concerns in there for testing purposes and other things outside of the ask that we need to always have the agent keep in mind. And that is sometimes not discernible from just the tree map that is generated. So this is Claude-dev suggesting some changes on my refactoring. Sure, wants to install Python, go for it. So it says that it's giving me some information about how it's improving things, logging, etc. We're going to go ahead and save it here. And you can see it's hard to tell and discern now, but my experience has been that the more context you give it, the language model earlier, the better it's going to be at giving you the results that you want. That's the whole concept behind this. There's no benchmarks on it, nothing other than my pattern of always having my agent read the README file at the beginning of every ad in order to get good results. And I know that I got better results when I started doing it. I came up with this to help in just that simple scenario of just a root file, but my imagination took me to what the AI agents would like to have in the future. Let me know if you have any questions. I will link all the information in comments below. Just as a quick addendum, I've updated the Codebase Context Editor a little bit. So I wanted to show you a few things. First of all, you can view the latest spec right here. Also, there are two different methods, AI-assisted drafting or the manual form completion. The manual forms are down here. And then the prompts here help you copy and paste for generating a new context or coding assistant prompt for custom instructions. If you have a blank code base, you can use this to generate a new .context file that you can use as a draft. And then you can then copy this into the custom instructions of your AI assistant tool to help you get started with code bases that already have the context files. Thanks very much for the attention. Let me know if you have any questions. If you would, go to GitHub and star my repo and give this video a like and subscribe for further updates on Codebase Context. Thanks.